I am Adela Wright. I am the council registrar. I know some or all of you. Hello again. So Recharter is due December 15th, so that's the important date here. So our agenda tonight, we're going to quickly go over membership fees. We're going to go some common things about 2023 Recharter issues and questions. We'll briefly glance on 2024 Recharter, and then we'll do a Q&A. So membership fees. Everybody, I hope, is aware by now that the membership fee structure changed and the fees went up as of August. So in this slide, you can refer back to it later when you're doing your Recharter. These are all of the current fees for the youth, for the adults, for exploring, which is a little bit different. It's got the optional fees as well, like Scout Life. It's got the new member fee. So what each person is going to pay is going to kind of be a little different depending on whether they've got Scout Life, whether they're brand new, and so on. So that's just there for reference as well if you want to look back at it later. So the membership changed. So everybody who was registered before August 1st, 2023, their membership fees were able to be prorated. All of their memberships will expire on January 31st, 2024. Renewal fees will be paid by the unit at Recharter. So that means that units must collect the Recharter fees and the Good Turn assessment fees, if applicable, from the members. And they will not receive email renewal notices until about November 2024. Everybody who was registered August 1st and later, their fees cannot be prorated anymore. So there's always going to be a 12-month membership, 12 calendar months. It's not like date to date. On your Recharter, these people are going to show as prepaid and they're going to show $0 due. You do not need to collect membership fees for them, Recharter fees. But if you're responsible for Good Turn assessment fees, you will need to collect them from the members. And these people will start receiving email renewal notices 60 days prior to their registration month. So the earliest people will start getting it is in June of next year. So Recharter, for these people who are August or later, they're going to show, as you can see here in the highlights, as $0 due, and they're going to show up in the prepaid category in the smaller screenshot. So it's going to look like they're multiples or something like that. They're not multiples, but they're going to have the $0 due. And that's how you're going to know that you don't need to collect fees for them. So for the Recharter that is open just a couple days ago, you can't see all of it. Let's see. Okay, so it's the same as last year. There's a lot of changes, but this year the Recharter tool is going to be the same. It's the same system and it's the same process. So in order to access the Recharter tool, you must be registered as the chartered org rep, the committee chair, or the unit leader, or you can be registered as the COR delegate or the Key 3 delegate in MyDot Scouting. If you're not in one of those positions, you're not going to be able to access it. So you're going to log into Internet Advancement just like last year, and you're going to use your same MyDot Scouting username and password. And if you don't know it, need help with it, let me know. Send me an email. So if your unit is not logged in by November 15th, I've been told that a unit commissioner will probably contact you to see if you need assistance with your Recharter. So go in and get started sooner rather than later. That way, if there are issues, then we can work them out. Your Recharter fees. On your Recharter, you're going to have an annual charter fee of $100 for the unit. You're also going to need to pay the renewal fees for the youth and adults who were on your roster prior to August 1st. You're not going to pay the renewal fees for the youth and adults who registered August 1st or later. And the Good Turn assessment is not collected in the Recharter tool. We'll talk more about the Good Turn assessment in a little bit. So the deadline to submit your Recharter is December 15th. This gives us time to work out issues because I have to look through all of your Recharters. So the sooner that everybody turns them in, the more time it gives me to work out with everybody. Because most of them, they've got something to ask a question about or try to resolve. So please submit it on time. That's really important. And please start early and ask for help early. So if you wait till the last minute and then if there are issues, then it's more of a time crunch. And if you don't ask for help and figure, I'll get to it a little bit later, even though you know there's an issue, again, it becomes a time crunch. And the link to Internet Advancement is right there at the bottom. And in the slides, it's clickable. there any questions so far? Cool.
So what's the difference between myscouting.org, I think you mentioned before, and the advancement, internet advancement?
There are two different BSA products, and Internet Recharter is currently through Internet Advancement. Internet Advancement, it'll show like the Scouts. It's kind of like Scout Book, but not quite. So you can't record like each individual requirement like you can in Scout Book, but you'll see ranks and stuff like that. And I think you can run reporting. But that's where they've decided to put Internet Advanced or put Recharter. So the Recharter process, and I know this is really hard to see. So there are multiple steps. So right now, everybody should be reviewing your roster and collecting your fees if you haven't already. So you want to look in My.Scouting's organization manager for the official roster. If you're looking in Scout Book, that's not going to be quite as accurate because you can add and remove people from Scout Book, whereas your official roster in My.Scouting, you cannot. So you need to ask your families which members are returning and which ones are not. There's lots of reasons why people don't return, so it's important to find out ahead of time. And then you need to collect your fees, because if you don't collect your fees, we've had a few units who had issues with that last year, and it came down to the wire, and we don't want that. It's stressful for you, and it's stressful for me for sure. So after you've got all of your information, you're ready to go, you're going to submit your Recharter. So you're going to go to Internet Advancement, and you're going to update your Recharter roster. You're going to submit the payment either online or with a check at the council office. And then there's going to be an online approval step. So any Key 3 member can do it, but the COR should be aware and be prepared that like this is, I'm giving my approval to this roster, even if they aren't the one to physically click the button. Outside of the Recharter tool, units need to submit their annual charter agreement and the Journey to Excellence scorecard to either your unit commissioner or district executive. So the charter agreement needs to be signed by your executive officer, chartered org rep, and committee chair. The JTE scorecards need to be signed by your committee chair and unit leader. Once your Recharter is submitted, it'll come to me. I will review it. So if there's anything to fix or any questions we have, I will notify you. So common issues that we see, multiple registrations. We'll talk more about multiples later. If 2 units mark somebody as a multiple and nobody has paid for them, that's a problem. If it's double paid, that's a problem. People who haven't completed their AB 506, youth members who turned 18, stuff like that. So there's lots of things that we're checking for, but we will let you know. And then, so we'll work together, you and I, and the district executives and the unit commissioners, all to work to resolve everything. Again, submit it early so we have time to work through it without it being a time crunch. And then after that, we will post it. It's called posting. That we will finalize it and submit it to national. And all those changes that you've made to your roster will take effect February 1st. Any questions on the overall process? We'll get a little more in depth. So the minimum required adult positions. We often see units who don't have the minimum number of people in the right spots. So do make sure that you are meeting these particular minimums. So the chartered org rep can also be your committee chair or a committee member and the executive officer. But other adults, you can't have them registered as, say, a committee member and a den leader or an assistant scout master and a chartered org rep. BSA doesn't allow that. For everybody but a post, you can have 2 committee members or 1 committee member and 1 new member coordinator, up to you. And then your unit leaders are going to be your cub master, scout master, crew advisor, skipper, and post advisor for posts. You also need a minimum of 2 paid youths. Everybody else can be multiple, but you got to have 2 at least. If you have less than 5, we will have to sign off on that in the office. So payments, there are 3 ways to pay. You can pay by credit card, EFT or e-check, and you can pay at the council. So when you pay by credit card, that's going to go through instantly and it's done. If there are issues with your recharter, we can't fix it. If you added somebody who needed to be taken off, we can't fix it. And there's a 3% fee. For the EFT e-check, that's going to come from your bank account, not a credit card. And you will need to verify 2 microtransactions in order for the payment to go through. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But if they're not verified, those microtransactions within 30 days, the payment's going to time out. And again, if there are issues with your recharter, we can't make any changes to that. But there's only a $1 fee if you pay by e-check. It's a flat fee. If you pay at council, you need to pay with a check. If there are issues or errors with your recharter, we can usually make changes. Oh, I forgot to add so-and-so. Somebody did or didn't want Scout Life. We can make those changes. But we're not going to finalize the recharter without payment. So without payment, the unit expires, the adults expire if their memberships end on January 31st. If they joined August or later, then they will still have valid memberships, but they're going to be without a unit. There's no additional fee to pay by a check, but there is a 3% fee if you pay with a credit card at the office. And unfortunately, we do not take PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. So the microtransactions, a lot of people do use the EFT e-check option. So an automated email is going to be sent with instructions, and that's going to come from National or whatever service they're using. I don't get the email, so I don't know. In it, there's going to have instructions and a link to click where you're going to verify in your bank. You're going to log into your bank, and you're going to see 2 transactions, and you're going to enter how much these transactions are. They're very small, 2 cents, 3 cents, something like that. And once you verify that, then the full payment will be processed. But without that, it's going to time out after 30 days and it can't move forward. So it won't submit to us so that we can review and finalize it. So if you check the e-check or EFT option, just make sure that you're watching out for that email. So the good turn assessment, this applies to troops, crews, and ships only. So the units need to collect the $120 GTA for all the youth members, unit participants, venturing participants who have a primary registration in your unit. So this is going to be based on your youth roster in My.Scouting as of March 1st. Elizabeth, our accounting specialist, is going to email you an invoice. It's going to go to your committee chair and your unit leader in March. So if you have a treasurer assigned in My.Scouting's position manager on the functional roles tab, then she will copy your treasurer as well. If you don't have that person registered and in that position, then she won't know who the treasurer is for your unit. So also make sure that your roster and individual contact information are accurate in My.Scouting. That way the invoice goes to the right people. And the GTA payments are due no later than April 30th, 2024. So the GTA is not collected during Recharter. It is not collected in the Recharter tool. It's not set up to do that. So payment has to be submitted to the council by check after the invoice is received. So if you pay by credit card, there's going to be a 3% fee. So pay by check. So there's no good turn assessment for PACs or posts, adult volunteers, or youth members, unit participants, and venturing participants who are multiple in a unit. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. So a completed recharter, what does that look like? Your recharter is complete when it is submitted online. It has the charter.org approval online for Key 3, and all the issues that we found have been resolved. Payment is received, whether that's online or at the office. Your charter agreement has been submitted, and your Journey to Excellence scorecard is submitted. Then you are done, and you can celebrate. Okay, any questions before we move on to the next section? Great. So,
this is Kieran. Just
Sure.
a quick question here.
Yeah.
I may have missed it, but in the slides, I didn't see YPT mentioned. And there's 2 things. One is, yes, it is required in order to be any individual to be re-registered.
Yes.
And the other one is because it's mandatory. And the other one is, I think it's our desire to ensure that the YPT doesn't expire until end of January or February. So if you can add that in the slides before they're distributed, so it's explicit, that would help, unless I missed it, in which case my apologies.
No, you haven't missed it. Thank you. So when you're checking, we'll do common Recharter issues and questions. So when you're checking for errors in the Recharter tool, there's a validate button at the bottom right corner. When you click that, it's going to show you if you have any issues and what they are. So if it's green, no issues, that's fine. You can proceed. If you see yellow, that's a warning. It means you can submit it as it is, but we're not going to be able to finalize it until it's resolved. And then if it's red, you won't be able to submit it until you fix it on your end. So it has to be fixed. So common issues that we see, multiples. Multiples are members who are registered in more than one position, and they only need to pay once. So you want to coordinate which unit is going to pay the fees for these members. Otherwise, they end up double paid or not paid. So if both units mark the person multiple, we're going to remove that person because no fees were paid. If both units pay the fees for the member, we can process a refund, but it's going to take a while. And that's putting it very mildly. We see issues where it doesn't meet the minimum number of paid youth or the minimum adult position. So you can see that chart on the other slide to refer to that for what's the minimum for your type of unit. But if you see that, then you need to figure out who you're going to recruit to fill your roster. YPT is expiring or missing. So if your YPT is expiring or missing, you will not be able to submit it. That's going to be a red error and it's going to have to be fixed. We do want it to be valid through, I think, February, because that way that's not going to be a problem for you when we go to post it later. And I'm not sure even if the system may make it be that. I can't remember. So also, if your AB 506 is incomplete, we're going to remove the person from the roster. If we can't, because it's, say, a chartered org rep, for example, and we have to have them on the roster, and the deadline's approaching, and what do? We're gonna just put it through so that the rest of the unit can proceed, but we are going to suspend them right after. So if you upload paper applications, PDF applications, if they're missing signatures or they're just blank or it's the completely wrong document, that's going to be hold up on your Recharter. Also, youth members who turned 18. So these youth, they need to have YPT, they need an adult application. And depending on what role they're going into, they may need to do AB 506. So you have to remove them as a youth member and then re-add them back in as an adult using their same ID number. You can't just change the position. You have to remove them off as a youth member and then re-add them. So those are the common things that I see most often. With the Recharter tool itself, there are certain issues that I've seen repeatedly. So new applications, somebody applied, they applied, but they're still not showing up on your roster. Click the refresh button. Online applications sync best. So if you're using a paper or PDF application, I can't promise that it's gonna sync well and play nice with the Recharter tool. It may not. And that tends to cause trouble later down the line. So online applications really are the best. They don't work in every situation, such as when you're taking a youth to an adult, something like that. But when they are able to be used, it is best to use them. Updated YPT isn't showing in the Recharter tool. You've got the certificate in your hand, they did it, and it's still not updating. Click the refresh button because that should pull it in. But if that doesn't resolve the issue, let me know. The member might have 2 My.Scouting accounts, which is very frequent, or they might have a My.Scouting account associated with another counselor. So your My.Scouting account seems to be based on your zip code. So if they live in the borders of a different council, then their ID number that they're assigned when they take their YPT is going to be for a different council. Changing adult member positions. I've seen this a number of times because of the way that the tool is. There's a little pencil icon at the end of the row. And if you can't see the icon, use the scroll bar at the bottom of your screen. And if you don't have that either, reduce the zoom in your browser. I don't know why this is an issue, but it is. So if you just zoom to like 80 or 90%, you'll see that little pencil icon, and then you'll be able to change the positions. And then to remove a youth or adult member, you're going to click the checkbox next to the person's name, click the Manage Members button, and select Remove from Recharter. That one seems to get people stuck as well. Adding people doesn't seem to be such a problem, but removing them for some reason is. So if you need help with the Recharter tool and internet advancement, I'm happy to Zoom with you. Just let me know. Usually my schedule is pretty flexible. You can also come in. We have a computer right next to the front desk, and we can sit there and do it together, and we can look at it. So if you get stuck, ask for help.
Adela, may I ask a question on changing the adult member positions? As I understand it, the key 3 members are locked as of November 1st. Is that the case?
They are. So position manager is locked, I think, on your end for sure. Somebody else tried on the 2nd or 3rd, and it was all grayed out for them. They couldn't make any changes. So I don't think on your end that you can change that. On my end, in prior years, it was the same for me, but this year I seem to still have access. I don't know how long that's going to last, or if maybe once you access your Recharter, then I don't have access. I don't know. But I was able to change a key 3 member earlier this week after Recharter had opened. So I don't know. Right now, I seem to have that. So if you've got the application, or you will have it soon, send it to me and we will do what we can.
It is the case for a change of charter organization rep requires a paper application.
A charter org rep requires a new paper or PDF application, yes, and that should be signed by your executive officer.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of executive officer, this one causes a lot of confusion as well. So this is just the person on record as the head of your chartered org. So it might be the chartered org rep, but it doesn't have to be. So for example, a church, say the pastor is the executive officer, they're the head of the organization. And they might also be the chartered org rep, or they might delegate their responsibilities to an associate pastor and name that associate pastor as the chartered org rep. So it might be the same person and it might not. The executive officer is the one who appoints the chartered org rep and signs the COR's paper application. And the executive officer is not actually registered as a member of the BSA, unless they're registered in another position also. But the executive officer position is not. There's no fees, there's no YPT or AB 506, there's no background check. They can't be your 2 deep leadership, and they can't multiple. So they should not be marked multiple on your Recharter because they're not registered. There's no fees. And all units at a chartered organization at the same one must have the same executive officer and the same COR. So you want to make sure that if you've got a pack and a troop or a crew, that they all have the same executive officer and chartered org rep. So unit Scouter Reserve and unit College Scouter Reserve. They are for different age groups, but it's the same basic position. So these are registered background checked positions for adults. They require an application, youth protection training, and AB 506. The fees are the same as for any other registered adult. They meet the requirements for adults who stay overnight under the updated youth protection policies, whereas merit badge counselors do not. So there's no additional position-specific training. So that's the nice thing. If somebody just wants to camp and they don't really want to do any other commitment, this is the right position for them. The unit College Scouter Reserve cannot be part of your 2 deep leadership due to their age. You have to be 21 plus. So adults who are 18 to 20, they can register as assistant scoutmaster, but the council is expecting them to complete the position-specific training requirements, which they're not necessarily around to do or wanting to do. So that's why the College Scouter Reserve is the preferred adult leader position for this age group if they're not going to be involved in that actual leadership capacity of, whatever the ASM stuff. Sorry, my brain is freezing. Okay. Any questions on this?
Adela, there's a question from me again, Karen. And this came up, I've been talking to some units, and one of the units wanted clarification. There is Unit Scouter Reserve and Unit College Scout or Reserve.
Mhm.
The question from them was, it's clear that the unit Scout or Reserve has to be a committee position, cannot manage scouts, but can the unit College Scout or Reserve interact with scouts? And the perspective is that it's easier to get those who turn aged out 18 to be engaged with the troop if they use the college term. They've gone to college and they're more willing to join. But once you ask them to be an ASM, there is all this additional training which they cannot do because they're no longer on site. They're at a university. So that's that was the perspective and the question. I know it's more membership, but it ties in with rechartering. I did get this question. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So what was the question? Like, can they interact with the scouts?
Can the unit College Scout or Reserves, I think that's position 92, U92, and whether they can provide direction more than interact, right? Provide direction like to scouts, because we do have this firewall, right? I'm using a strong word, but committee members are not supposed to provide guidance directions to individual scouts.
I'm going to defer to Rand on that one. Rand, do you have an answer for that?
Yes. So the unit College Scout or Reserves can interact with the other scouts. And as far as committee members, I don't see a limitation other than their primary job is to be running the unit behind the scene. And so they're considered a non-contact leader. And as such, things like hazardous weather isn't required and so on. They would not be leading an outing, for example, and things like that. But in terms of unit College Scout or Reserve, there's no problem in them interacting, giving guidance, just like you would with, a senior patrol leader. What's the other thing I'm thinking of? A junior ASM.
Yeah.
Right, the junior ASM or troop guide or something. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as what you would expect from a unit Scout or Reserve, right? They don't have the extra training. They are background checked. They can be there. They can stay overnight. But And I mean, like, I would think the Scoutmaster, they can choose who can like sign off on things, but I just know that they can't serve as 2D leadership.
Right.
Because
thanks. I think enough to talk to. I know it's more of a definition issue, but thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Bernadette Hill.
So looking ahead to next year, 2024's recharter, and renewal, there's going to be 2 ways to renew. So there's going to be individual responsibility, and that's the default. And there's going to be the unit responsibility, which is a choice. So in the default individual renewal, the individual or the family is going to be responsible for renewing their own membership online and paying their fees. They can pay with a credit card online or check at the council. They will begin getting email renewal notices from National, not from us. And the Key 3 will also receive these emails for every single member in the unit. 60 days, 30 days, 15 days, 7 days, and 1 day before expiration. And if they still haven't renewed, it will be 7 days after also. And the good turn assessment will still be collected by the unit. If for some reason you prefer that the unit handles everything, and we've got some that want to do that, the unit is then responsible for renewing all the youth, all the adults online, and paying all of the membership fees. If the unit wants to do this, there will be a setting in My.Scouting that one of the Key 3 members is going to have to change. I don't think it's there yet, but there's going to be a switch that you got to flip. Families, if you do this, will not receive the email renewal notices. The unit can decide who drops, which members are dropping and which members are not renewing. So National is calling to drop a member, they're calling it opt-out. So the unit will decide who is going to be opted out. The payment options will be credit card online or paying by check at the council office, and that will be each month that has renewals. So if you've got renewals 12 months of the year, you're going to be paying 12 months. The turn assessment will still be collected by the unit in either case. So they are eliminating the e-check option, the EFT, as far as I understand it.
I have a question about the GTA. How come that's still collected by the unit in the individual responsibility section?
Rand, I'm going to let you answer that one too.
Okay. The reason for it is it gets complicated if we try to integrate that into a nationwide system that BSA has. So there's, I believe, about 242 councils nationwide, and every council is different. Not all the councils have something like the GTA and so on. So applying that would be a real challenge for the national organization to do that. And as such, it's just easier for us to do it separately.
I know that for Troop 61, even if it means that it's just assumed that GTA is part of the council fee, we'd be fine to say, okay, this line item is about council and GTA from a systematic standpoint, if it helps. But just throwing it out there from a database perspective, if we can make the PAC Sky fee GTA plus PAC Sky, we'd love it.
Well, we understand, but at the same time, we can't apply it towards, say, a troop, but not a pack and stuff like that. And so that's part of the challenge that we have as well, along with, like I said, the 242 councils where national would have to figure out how it's done.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just not possible. We all wish it was, though.
Yeah,
it would make everybody's life a whole lot easier. We understand that.
And for the same reason, it's not possible for us at the national level or even the council level for us to basically assess the Scout family what your unit operational fees are as well. Again, you start multiplying the number of units within a council, then it gets even more complicated.
Yeah. So for the renewals that start next year, there's going to be a 1-month lapse period, and then the youth or adult member will be dropped. So after the 1-month grace period, a new application will have to be submitted in order to be re-registered. So there's a 1 month. If families want to avoid additional paperwork, and we all want to avoid additional paperwork, don't let that month pass. So recharter next year, November 2024. In the little screenshot here, that's the whole thing. So it's going to be simplified. It's going to be a single screen. So youth and adult membership is not going to be part of the recharter. You won't be renewing members, only the unit charter. So that's going to allow you to operate with your chartered org for another 12 months. That's all you're going to renew next year because the membership is separate now after this recharter. So the recharter tool is going to validate the unit leadership, that you have the minimum number of required youth and adults, and it's going to validate YPT. Then you're just going to click the buttons, you approve it, pay, and that's it. But the good turn assessment will be collected separately. So I'm hoping it's going to be that simple as what they're telling us. But if it is, that looks really, really simple. So that should hopefully make recharter a lot nicer next year. Are there any other questions about any of this or anything else while you've got me?
Is there any flexibility when the families go ahead and pay online that there's some sort of note that the unit fees aren't collected? Because we've had a lot of confusion this year with families saying, well, I already paid. Like, well, you paid national, you paid council, but there's still the PAC or the troop fees. Is there a way to just make that clearer when they do the online payment at the national level? Because that would be for everybody, right?
I know right now, I know you're not using online applications, but when you do the online applications, there's a spot where you can enter in what your PAC fees are, and you can note that they'll need to pay that separately, that they're not collected at the time of registration. So
yeah, no, we did do that, but it's not clear.
Not working.
No, no, it's very confusing.
Okay. I don't know. That's a nice thing to add. So maybe we can add that somewhere in our fee chart. That way, if you show it to families, they can see that there will be additional packages. I can talk to Andrea about that.
Yeah. The other thing is in Be a Scout, there is that optional message that you can click and say, it advises them. There's also a welcome email that you can click and have that be sent out to them. So that's an additional opportunity to
Is
tell
that with Invitation Manager or only when they've submitted an application online?
When they've submitted a application online. I believe.
So if you're using a paper application, they wouldn't see that.
Yeah, we really, again, we want to steer people towards the online system as much as possible. It's just so much more streamlined, so much more efficient, and we're able to, make certain that we get correct dates and spellings of names and things like that as well. And there's no missing information.
The reason why we've kind of kept it more allowing for both online and paper is the additional service fee, the $5 or so. It just rubs people the wrong way, at least in our pack. And so that's why we've been saying, okay, fine. If you don't want to pay the $5 service fee, give it to us and we'll just go take it.
Yeah. At the same time, I do know of the 242 councils across the country, there are quite a few countries that say if you're going to submit a paper application, the fee is higher compared to doing it online. And so it's something that PacSky hasn't done, but, again, I don't know. It's a matter of working with families.
Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions?
So I have one question about the payment. So I know for this year, I wasn't able to view until the Recharter tool opened up on the 2nd or whatever it was to see who actually was zeroed out. Because I know sometimes families get confused. So for me to ask them,
did you pay? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was once the Recharter tool opened up, then I was able to, help the families understand what they had paid and what they didn't. So that made it easy. So why I say this is moving forward now, will we have access as registrars to be to kind of know when people have paid what when? Because I can completely see families saying, "Oh, I didn't get the email," or "I think I paid," and it's like, "Well, no, you didn't." And I will have no way of knowing until the Recharter tool opens up November 2nd every year. So this is what I'm envisioning if I don't have access to it during the year. So I'm just throwing this out there.
So going forward, after this Recharter is over, you're not going to see the members in Recharter anymore. They're not going to be there like that. I think it's just going to give you a total number. I don't think it's going to give you even their names. I think it's just going to, because it's separate. It's just renewing the charter to be with your chartered org for another year. So I don't think you're going to see that in the future.
So how do we know when people are no longer part of
Yep.
our troop? Because then they're just going to keep coming.
Yeah.
And we may not know. We don't get flagged. I mean, this is sort of chaotic.
So I know that there will be a report in My.Scouting that is not there yet, but it's allegedly coming. And it will tell you who is up for renewal. So I don't have all of the answers because we just don't, it's not there yet for us to see. But I would say so you're going to get 1 million emails for all of these people. So if they're saying they haven't gotten it, one of the key 3 can certainly forward it to them and make sure that they got it. The report will tell you who needs to renew. So when they drop off that report prior to their expiration and they're still on your roster, then they've renewed, I would assume. Also, as long as they're still on your roster after that 30 days grace period, they will have renewed. Beyond that, I don't know, because the tools just aren't there for us to look at right now. So I'm hoping that as we head into spring and summer, we're going to have more training, more information to share with you. But right now, I don't have all that answers, unfortunately. So, sorry.
Yeah, it would be great to have sort of a dropped report tool.
And maybe there will be, but I don't have that at the moment.
Because that's really nice how we have it in the charter now, and it shows who's been dropped. So anyway, because I know I can email these families literally like every week,
Yeah.
And then, for like 10 times, and they'll come back to me in February. It's like, why was I dropped from the roster?
Yeah.
And so
I hear
we
you.
all know this. We all know
we
this.
Do. We do. I'm a longtime volunteer, so I hear you. Right now, I just don't have all the answers for that because they haven't shared all of that with us. But when we do, we'll gladly share it.
In the case of adult registrations that are incomplete, either for YPT or AB 506 completion, what happens to them during the rechartering period? They need to be dropped off of the recharter in order for us to proceed. But what happens to their status or application?
I mean, if they are dropped, then they're not going to be there. If you need them on your roster in order to submit, assuming it's not YPT, we can't submit that way. For AB 506, if you need them to meet the minimums, we're going to submit it and then we're going to suspend them. And then they can't do any scouting until their suspension is lifted once they've completed the AB 506. Does that mean that they won't be effective members until January 31st, I think it was? Once they've completed AB 506 or and gotten that completed? Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. I mean, when you register, you're registered for 12 months. So if it's been like an online application, we'll suspend them. But if it's like a paper application, a PDF that's submitted with the recharter, like in the recharter tool that we then download and process when we're going through your recharter, we wouldn't include them unless we had to because they were part of the minimum. Yes. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm not sure I understood. I think it does. Okay. Any other questions?
I just have one comment, and that's on the e-check. And, you may have a different opinion than I do, but I worked in a couple of different scouting councils, and I do know that paying your recharter fee by e-check or the electronic funds transfer, we've run into some real challenges there. And so it always seems like a good old-fashioned paper check always seems to work better. And, some of the scenarios are, the national organization will put in a micro amount. It goes to your troop checking account, and that checking account's linked to a old committee chair that left the organization 3 years ago. And so it's going to that person and nobody knows that. And so as Adela was saying, it times out after 30 days and it's just a pain. So as much as possible, a good old fashioned check works great.
It does work great. Yep. Just make sure that you get it in. Yeah. Yep. If you submit your recharter with less than 30 days to go, and then we have to wait for it to time out, that's going to be a problem. So that's another reason, start early, please. We'll all be happier if we can have it done by the holidays.
Yep. And one other bit of advice from a district professional, that is communicate with us as to how it's going. As a scouting professional and as a volunteer for 15 years, one thing we don't want to do is to have our scout volunteers stressed out. So if you're stressed out and you're struggling, stuff like that, talk to us. We can work with you. The scouting professionals like myself are willing to work with you on evenings and weekends to do it. The most important thing is just communicate with us as to what's going on. If you're running a little bit late, maybe you ended up in the hospital or something like that, or getting COVID, and that's going to delay things. We understand things like that. Just, shoot us an email, let us know what's going on. We'll work with you on that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So let's see if this will reach my next slide. There we go. Okay, if you still have questions or think of questions later, we have our membership fee and renewal changes FAQ, which many of you have probably seen a while back. We have our unit recharter instructions, has a lot of stuff. A lot of it that we talked over today. The recharter FAQ, it's more common questions that we come up with. And contact your unit commissioners. If you're not sure who they are, ask your district executive. You can find your district executive right there, Stanford, Discovery, and Redwood. I'm at Foster City. I'm there most days. So give me a call, give me an email, and we will gladly help you so that we can get this all done. It's a team project. So
And
that's
if
it. Thank you for your time.
Well,
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate Adela helping us tonight. I also wanted to just add to the chat that I put in about 20 minutes ago, and that is that I will post the video in the next couple days along with the PowerPoint slide presentation from Adela on the council website under the unit recharter instruction. The link is there. It's also in their scrolling banner that's at the top of the web page there, the second item. Right now, you can click on that. That'll take you to a very detailed page on Recharter, and at the bottom, you'll find the links to the training that we covered tonight. So, again, thank you very much for attending tonight. We greatly appreciate it. Dan had to drop off for another scouting meeting, but we appreciate everything that you do for scouting, and have a great evening.